Hey everybody, how's it going? It's Intangir here, getting really annoyed at my annoying animals that keep messing up my video, but I'm playing some Factorio today, and I finally got to get into Factorio Space Age a few days ago. I had to start all over though because none of my old saves worked, so I finally got to the point where I started doing train stuff and realized none of my old train stuff worked. So I've started a whole new implementation of my IVTN train system. And I also came up with this new rail setup that uses the new kind of rails, and I've improved it to have snap to grid, and it also has better uniform spacing on the train stops, stuff like that. So lots of improvements. But the big one is I've got my new IVTN 2.0.1 out. I made another video and a release earlier today, but I've already improved on it substantially since then, so I'm going to put this video out and just take the older one down. It's just going to be confusing. So I've got a lot of improvements. It's basically the similar system to before, but implemented completely differently, and with a handful of major improvements that are, one of them's super helpful, but not like earth-shattering, and the other one is really cool. Flex trains. Okay, so let's get into it. So I've got all these different things. You kind of need to know about what each one of these is. First of all, there's a new type of station for refueling. Trains can go to a dedicated refueling location when they get low, and you can just kind of worry about fueling stuff in one spot instead of doing it throughout your entire depot. So you can keep your centralized depot lanes pretty basic. And I've got 3 different kinds. Unfortunately, I needed at least 2, but just to make things more clear, I've got 3. I've got one that is shared by all the dedicated types of trains. So like if you have dedicated iron or dedicated fish or dedicated water, whatever, all of those dedicated trains will use these basic depot stations. These are kind of like dumb stations. I've been kind of thinking about them. So these are my dumb depots. And then I also have item flex depots and liquid flex, fluid flex depots. And you have to have enough of these for these specific types of trains. So I'm going to put some of those down. And let's see. Looks like I got at least one more spot. I'll do 2 of each. And if you're just going to focus on a base that just uses only one type of trains, you don't need all 3. So like if you're going to have all your trains be flex trains, which I don't really recommend, you can just do, well, you still have to have fluids and item versions of the flex trains. But if you're going to have all of your trains be dedicated to a specific type and not flex, then you don't need any of this at all. All right, so let's check out some of the other stations. So I've got a new supply and demand and fluid supply and fluid demand type of stations. The big improvements here is it uses the parameter system. It's got way fewer circuits, and all you got to do is pick which commodity type. It sets all of your magic numbers based off of it, and you don't have to signal onto the network at all anymore. You just have to have it hooked onto the tracks. And I'm going to go ahead and add some things to that station real quick. But yeah, it's pretty awesome already. I'm really digging it. A lot of the new features have been super helpful for re-implementing this. It took way less time than it did to write it the first time, obviously. I mean, they wrote these improvements specifically for trains on purpose. It wasn't an accident that they just happened to completely make my old one completely obsolete and broken. But the new features that you get out of this new setup are really cool, so it's worth it. So anyway, so now I've got a supply station and a demand station, and demand still does priority. I've re-implemented the priority to just use their priority feature that's built in. You can just set it by a signal. So each of these have a combinator so you can see what's going on with them. Like this one here, it's the output signal there that says 4 carts. So I've got 4 train loads available, and I also have 4 train loads that are required over here, demanded over here. So I'm going to go ahead and add a train. And I've got multiple kind of trains as well. So I've got dedicated item trains, dedicated fluid trains, flex item trains, and flex fluid trains. It seems complicated, but there's a reason why there's 4, because these two could have been combined into one, but I would have not been able to add the carts to it. So I wanted to be able to add, either the cargos or the fluid tanks, because if you do add the carts at the same time, it just turns right on and gets to work. You don't have to toggle it on yourself, so it's a real time saver to just have one specific to which type you want. So it's gone and gotten some fuel, and now it's going to go over here and start picking things up. It didn't even have to go to the depot first. And the other cool thing, that's an improvement since 1.0, is that once it's done fueling up, it can see that there's this demand station already waiting, and it can just go straight there. It does not have to go to the depot at all until it's got nothing better to do. And the reason why these trains work so much better than before is because you can have conditional interrupts that basically can program the schedule on the fly based on conditions. It's very handy. But there is a couple of catches. There's a couple of caveats. Number one, any changes you make to one group are going to affect everything else in the group. Which is fine for these dedicated trains because they're all supposed to behave the same anyway. But also, any changes you make to these interrupts, it will affect every other train that has these same type of interrupts. So keep that in mind. So basically, if you want to have a dedicated train, you can't have anything specific to that dedicated resource in the interrupts because these are shared by all the other trains, all the other dedicated trains. So that's an interesting limitation, but it does give you some cool advantages as well. So I'm going to go ahead and add another one just because. See how they behave. This one, we can only take one more train. So I'm going to try and unload it of some of the stuff it's got. Where'd the other guy go? Here he comes. He couldn't get to the supply station because it was in use at the time. So now it's working just as it's supposed to. I'm just going to let that fill up and then we'll see what they'll do. And in the meantime, I'm going to add some more type of stations. So I also have new supply stations and supply for fluid stations. Fluid supply stations. They have changed a lot since the last version. I gotta make sure to fix this in my blueprint. Alright, so that one's going over there to fill up. This one's full and waiting because this is full and there's nothing. It won't do a delivery unless there's a full space available. So it's just gonna wait at the depot as it's supposed to, and the second one should also arrive and do the same. So yeah, that's all working as it's supposed to. And so anyway, back to the fluid station. So yeah, I've got this new fluid supply station. It's updated to have a lot more tanks on here so that you can hold more loads. It should be able to hold 3 now instead of just 1. And I've also added a lot more pumps. The pumps are the big bottleneck now. It seemed before you could fill those carts really quickly, but you can't anymore. They're much slower. But the throughput through all of your pipe networks and your tanks is way higher between each other, but it's slower on the pumps. So it's some pros and cons, but mostly pros. Because spanning huge distances with pipelines is way easier than it ever was. But the pumps seem to be slower. I don't know. So I'm going to put down a fluid train. I'm going to have a dedicated... actually, I've already showed off the dedicated item trains. The dedicated fluid trains are essentially the same. I'll put one down just to make sure. I made a lot of changes recently, so still kind of double checking some of this out. Alright, so it should go pick up that after it gets some fuel. The other cool thing about the dedicated trains is they'll pick up supplies even if there's nowhere to deliver it yet. But the flex trains, I programmed them not to do that, because if they did, they would just fill up on one thing that's available, and they'd all be waiting to deliver that one thing like say, for example, if I had a whole ton of stone, but I only had one station that needed stone, if I had a whole bunch of flex trains and there was a stone station nearby that was always ready with stone, they'd all fill up on the stone and then they'd sit around, and they would have a hard time actually delivering it. So what I've done is I've made the flex trains have a rule in there where they'll only run out to pick something up if it can actually deliver it as well. So here's a flex train. They have to have their own depots where they wait because they don't actually know how to find what they need to go get on their own. There's these cool wildcard variable features here, but the problem is if you don't have anything on hand, it won't figure out what to go look for. So what I've done is I've made the stations themselves tell the trains what to go look for. And once they have that variable as a signal, they'll find what's available and they'll go grab it. So I'm going to take all of this stuff off, and we'll play with the flex trains for a bit. Go ahead and empty some of this out of there. Alright, so he's took off. Okay, so this, as soon as this became available, as soon as this had enough room for a load, it turned on and this sprung into action. So the way these work is, yeah, they use these they use a slightly different logic, and they also have a pickup where they'll go pick up based on what signals they're receiving from the depot. That's why they have to go to a special kind of depot. They need to pick up those special signals. Hold on a second. Okay. I wanted to check something. Yeah, because I don't think there's any way for them to receive signals like wirelessly. They do have to actually get those signals. I was just thinking, what if I put constant combinators on these as well? Then they wouldn't even need to go to the depot. It could be cool. Could be cool. I'll think about maybe do that later. Anyway, so as you can see, the flex train is doing exactly what you'd expect it to do. Goes out on supply runs whenever both stations are ready. And it works great. I'm going to go ahead and put a flex fluid train down as well. Oops, that's the station. I want the train. And it will just spring into action. There's nowhere for it to deliver this stuff yet, so I'm going to put down a fluid demand station and make it for gas. And it's arriving at the flex fluid depot. It got the signals for what to look for. It found the gas. It's run off to get the gas. So that's how it works. The flex trains are a little, they have a little bit of a longer route because they have to go pick up the supply before they can go make a delivery as soon as the delivery turns on. So if you have just like a handful of stations and there's really not a lot of traffic necessary, then the flex trains will work great. The turnaround time is going to be a little longer. But if you don't have that much going on at your stations yet, and you're not using as much as you have on hand very quickly, and you have a lot of stations like that where they all have a low volume, then I think they'll work great. So for like my starter base that I've been working on, I think they're going to be great starting off. But as you get more and more trains, as you get more and more resource usage at your stations, and the volume needs to be higher, you can just add dedicated trains, and just make sure that you have enough depots for each of your type of trains. You can kind of tell the difference. The I's are item ones, the F's are fluid ones, and the ones that don't have anything, those are shared by all the dedicated trains. And that's how it works. That's pretty much everything. I talked about what all these different things are for, and there are a lot. It's a little confusing at first if you don't know why there are so many. But yeah, all your pickup and drop off stations are these guys. They are used by all the trains, and then yeah, the trains and depots are kind of paired up. Um, well, sort of, so that the ones that you need is next to it, except for these two. But anyway, that's it. Hopefully that's going to be helpful to you. Hopefully some more people actually notice this blueprint system. There's a couple other people I saw out there who already made some blueprint systems, and honestly, I mean, I know I'm biased, but I think this one is already better than all of theirs because it has more types of functionality. You can do dedicated trains, you can do flex trains. The logic of the train seems to be smarter and better and work better. And it's really cool. It's very similar to the old IVTN for 1.0, but now implemented with a much more advanced programming system that's train specific instead of depot specific. It makes things a lot simpler. Anyhow, y'all, I'll catch you next time. Have a good one. Bye. Oh, also, I'll put the blueprints in the description and in the comments, so you can grab them from there. See you later.